Hey, do you have $50,000 lying around to purchase your next home? I don't know about you, but not many people have access to $50,000 the first time they buy a home. What if there was a better way? Hey, Jeff Packer here, team leader and broker of the Packer Group. And we value educating our clients to help them make the best real estate decisions of their life. Don't forget, we help people buy and sell all the time, and we'd love to help you. So feel free to pick up the phone, give us a call. So this week we are talking about first-time home buyer programs that can help you get into the home where you're not spending $50,000, but maybe you're bringing $10,000 to close. As a disclaimer, as I'm going over these programs that I'm about to go through, understand that many of them see first-time buyers are defined as someone who hasn't owned a home in the last 3 years. So for example, if you're sitting there and you owned a home, then maybe you sold that home for whatever reason and then moved into another property as a rental, and you rented there or even lived with mom and dad for a temporary time period, but you did that for 3 years, you may be eligible for these down payment assistance programs that I'm about to go over. Let's run into it. So there are companies out there like the National Homebuyer Fund, the Genoa Fund, the National Faith Fund. All of these companies out there, they're nationwide programs, and they have all their different requirements that one would have to meet. I'm not endorsing any one of those. I just want you to know there are other options than some of the ones I'm gonna get into the meat and potatoes on. One other option is, depending on your occupation, there is one called the Good Neighbor Next Door program. These are homes that had government-backed loans on them, like Veterans Loan, FHA loan, the USDA loan. These loans that end up in foreclosure, the government needs to sell these homes. They will give a discount of up to 50% off that home for anybody who is a teacher, firefighter, law enforcement officer, and emergency medical technician. You can buy the home for about $100 down payment of $100, and you are required to live there for 3 years. If you sell it before that 3-year period is up, you may be in a situation where you have to reimburse some of the discount that you got off of the home. One of the big cons to this program is you might have a very low supply of available homes to choose from. So please keep that in mind. But it's a great program for you to consider, but it's not everywhere. So if you're a law enforcement guy living in Canton, Michigan, this program is not in Canton. It's often in what they consider revitalized areas, where it's lower income areas, and they're trying to put good people in lower income areas to improve the neighborhood. Hence why it's called the Good Neighbor Next Door program. The big program that I really want to stress, which is probably one of the best programs we've seen, is the MSHDA program. So this is a program specifically for the state of Michigan, and you are able to get a loan for your down payment that is a zero interest loan that gets repaid when you sell the home at a later date. You are able to get anywhere from $7,500 or $10,000 for the down payment assistance. It can go towards your down payment as well as your closing costs. You do have to have a minimum credit score of 640. The home value must be lower than $224,500. And the $10,000 down payment assistance is only available in certain zip codes. Now, that's 236 zip codes across the state of Michigan, so it's a pretty big area. And there are cities like Livonia, Canton, Northville, Plymouth, that are all on that zip code list. So this program is one of the programs we are seeing a lot of the lenders that are trusted lenders that we recommend to our clients are utilizing a lot of. Here's the example that we're gonna work through. We are going to look at a typical first-time home buyer who is purchasing a home at $200,000. what would it look like if you're buying that home putting 20% down? Because that's the big myth out there that oftentimes people need permission to understand how this works. You do not need to put 20% down. You can purchase a home by putting less than 20% down. So if you were purchasing a $200,000 home, putting 20% down, 20% of $200,000 is $40,000. Then we put in your closing costs and your prepaid expenses, and those total roughly $9,000. So on a $200,000 purchase, you're gonna borrow $160,000, but you're gonna have to bring to the closing table $49,000 of your hard-earned money to be able to purchase that home. Look, not many people are in a position to be able to bring $49,000 to the table to be able to purchase. So I have in front of me a cash to close worksheet that one of our trusted lenders did, where it shows that same $200,000 home putting 3% down. And in that scenario, the cash to close after the $7,500 down payment assistance is put in is less than $9,000. You might be sitting there going, Jeff, $9,000, I still don't even have $9,000 to be able to bring to the closing table. Well, stick around. We have other possible options that can help subsidize a big portion of that so that you could maybe bring as little as 1% of your purchase price, and that's it. When it comes to closing costs and prepaid expenses, under a conventional mortgage or under an FHA mortgage, whichever you may be getting, you have a certain percentage of the purchase price that you could get from the seller as a reimbursement to you as the buyer to use towards closing costs and prepaid expenses. It all depends on what's happening in the real estate market. If the market is soft, sellers are willing to do these types of things to sell their home. Well, why would they do that? Well, if they were gonna have to do a price reduction, let's say of $10,000 to sell their home, they would much rather pay, $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 in closing cost credit to the buyer, because that's a better scenario in the end. The net price to the seller, that's better than doing a $10,000 reduction. And so this is a great way for buyers to be able to buy where their down payment's being taken care of through MSHDA, and then their closing costs and prepaids can get subsidized from the seller. And as long as you still meet the minimum requirement, which keep in mind, all this stuff is always subject to change, but at the time of this recording, MSHDA requires 1% at the minimum that a buyer would need to bring to the closing table to purchase. So in this case, if we're talking about a $200,000 home, that's $2,000. That means if there was $9,000 required and you only have to bring $2,000, that's $7,000 that you could potentially request the seller to subsidize and pay for on your behalf to be able to get into this home. Again, this strategy only works in certain real estate markets because look, if the market's super hot and there's bidding wars and things like that going on, guess what? Sellers may not work with somebody like that. But if the house is sitting on the market and it's having a hard time moving, we may be in a position where a seller would be willing to entertain an offer where they cover some of your closing costs and prepaid expenses. So yeah, I can just envision you on the other side of this camera sitting there going, yeah, but what about payment difference? Because I didn't really get into that. Well, that's because there's a lot of assumptions. And so here's the bottom line. The difference between those $200,000 where you're putting 20% down and the $200,000 and you're doing a MSHDA loan and getting the down payment assistance, you're looking at under $300 a month difference. $1,300 versus $1,575. The purpose of this video is to encourage you. Go talk to our trusted lenders. Let's figure out what budget and financial guidelines are needed to be able to make sure you can get a down payment assistance program if that's the program that's best for you. And if that's the program that's best for you, then we can let the financing drive the house purchase. We can build a search around the right price point, the right zip codes, because as I mentioned in the video earlier, all of these guidelines impact where you can get the down payment assistance, where the home is located, things like that. And so we need to make sure that we let your financing drive the house purchase so that we can make sure you're buying a house and not being house rich and cash poor, but rather being in a very comfortable housing experience in which you have money left over in your budget to maintain and operate that home the way people need to when it comes to home ownership. So I'll leave you with this. The National Association of Realtors in 2021 found that the average net worth of a homeowner was about $300,000. And you know what the average net worth of somebody who rented a home was? It was $8,000. So look, home ownership leads to 40 times more net worth than what a renter would have. And so this is why we believe deeply in getting you into the right home with the right financial guidance. And so these MSHDA options are great options that you should be able to look to buy instead of rent. We have a great video that we did earlier. We'll have a link to that as well that you may want to watch, because there is a time where it makes sense to continue to rent, and then there's a time where it makes sense to buy. So we want to help you find that path and what works best for you. Give us a call. So if you're watching this video, hopefully this is your first time thinking about buying a home. Let me say that differently. Do you know the star, The More You Know? You know what I'm talking about? You didn't watch TV as a kid. And it was always like, the more you know, and it was like the shooting star across the screen, and it said, the more you know, and then somebody would come on and like say, you know, hey, this is your brain, this is your brain on drugs, you know? Yeah, it was like, so I was thinking like you could cut to the script of like, the more you know, and then put, you know, that in, and we end the video that way. Oh my gosh, there's way too much rattling around in the Jeff Packer brain right now. I'm gonna rattle this off. You're gonna have to figure out where you're putting it into this video.